Hello there everyone, and welcome to something a little bit different. It's actually going to be me going through this new devblog number 8 from Southpaw Games regarding Skul. This is the first devblog that we've had in a little while now regarding, you can see it right here, the new item reformation that they're working on. Similar to how in February they released the Skul balance adjustment update where everyone got their new toys. I just made a tier list about everyone's new placements. They're going to be working on items and inscriptions coming up before their eventual release of hard mode. And last time I had people asking me, hey Beelz, what are your thoughts on this update? What are your thoughts on these ideas? What do you think about their intentions? And so instead of just answering in comments and stuff like that, I figured I'd make a video of me going through a blind read of what their plans are now that the notes are out, and kind of give my impressions on it. Now, I've already read through the first beginning part right here. They're basically just talking about how hard mode is their main goal this year so far, but in order to make hard mode properly challenging, they've needed to make some other adjustments first, like with the base game. So that means the Skul balance adjustment that you can see here, we've already had that, and now they want to work on items and inscriptions along with status effects. Things that we as a community have been telling them for a while now might need some fixing. There are some items, or just inscriptions in general, that are kind of being left behind in favor of more optimized, more obvious builds. And I'm glad that they're taking that feedback and deciding to do something about it. Something else that I want to bring attention to right here is they're saying we don't want to just make the game difficult and say it's a hard mode, but actually want to design content that's both challenging and entertaining. This is really good because it's not hard, I'll be honest. It's not difficult to make a game harder by just tuning the numbers up, right? Take every boss in the game, give them twice as much health, make them do twice as much damage, take all the regular rooms and put twice the number of enemies in there, or just replace more of the small grunt enemies with more of the big elite enemies. You can inflate the game to give it an artificial sense of difficulty, but that isn't really what they're going for, and I'm not a big fan of that style of difficulty. You'll see it in some of the other games that handle difficulty in a way that I prefer, games like Hades, Dead Cells, where the difficulty comes from either enemies getting new buffs or new functions that they use against you, or putting a timer in the game, even if you decide to do that, giving a boss an entire new phase to have to fight through, so it adds an extra layer to the fight instead of just extra numbers on the screen. I like actual challenge that comes with a new way of thinking, as opposed to build yourself exactly the same, but now the fight's going to take longer and you still don't want to get hit because you'll take extra damage. That's not difficulty, that's just tedium for the sake of making it longer. Right, let's get stuck in. Items reformation. Intention to allow various combinations of items by making some changes in the items that were somewhat useless. I'm glad to hear this, and I can see they're using the Cretan Bull as an example down here. Many reasons why the players try to avoid or discard items, low spec, or the fact that it requires too much effort to use. The Cretan Bull, for instance, is a rare item that can be acquired from the Grave Robber in the black market. Its effect is activated by summoning an image of a bull with an enhanced dash effect. We know how it works. Yes. Dash distance is a big benefit to the Cretan Bull. I'm glad that they're acknowledging that was the main gimmick behind it, was to give Power Skulls a bit more mobility as an option, since it only works for Power Skulls. This, however, turned out to not be the best decision we had made. I love, by the way, I need to say right now, I love that Southpaw seem to be very humble and very accepting whenever they make a decision that maybe hasn't worked out the best. They've done this a bunch where they'll go back and say, okay, this idea was kind of cool in theory, but in practice, it's not really working out that well. Because let's be honest, if you were to design the Cretan Bull and say, right, once every 20 seconds or so, your next dash makes you this giant bull deity charging thing. It's got 3 times the distance, does more damage. It sounds great. And then when you get it out there in the game and it's being put in practice against all the other great items you've made, suddenly it doesn't seem quite as good. And that's fair. That's good. That's a good game design right there, is to recognize a good idea that maybe just hasn't worked out that well and redesign that idea. Let's see if they've decided to redesign the idea. There were occasions where the effective Cretan Bull would be activated in the wrong timing. Long cooldown, the only way to check this was to look at the status icon below. Not easy in the middle of chaotic combat, I agree. Many players were also frustrated by this, since the effect was suddenly activated by a dash. Yes, unexpected movement. That's why they're showing Warrior here falling into a pit. Thus, despite its rarity, it became an unwanted item, yes. We decided to change the condition of activating Cretan Bull's effect to dashing after using a skill. So that's what the Minotaur's doing there. That's actually really good. So you can trigger this whenever you want. This is one example of how we're planning to change the unused items. I really like that idea. So That's actually really good. That'll play into items. I immediately think about things like Infinite Bone and some of the cooldown reducing items. This also gives it more synergy, because beforehand, Cretan Bull is just... It dominantly is just an item that does what it does and wants to work with Blitz. But building around Blitz is actually really, really difficult, and half the time isn't worth doing. But now Cretan Bull can benefit from anything that reduces cooldowns if that's how you're going to be activating it. That's a really good idea. I like that. Now, Inscription Reformation. I see we have the Kyrian here, and this all looks very different. Okay, the inscriptions have had a facelift. Intention is to make gathering inscriptions less stressful. This is what we're planning. Let's see what they're doing. Unlike now, players will be able to feel the effects whenever 2 to 3 inscriptions are gathered, and the overall number of inscriptions required to have maximum effect is reduced. I can see down here, I can already see Courage being mentioned. Yes, Courage and Tactics. There are some inscriptions in the game that require 8 items, which is absurd. It's basically saying your entire item pool need to be all of these items to get this effect maxed out, which just makes it just becomes like an egg hunt to try and get these effects maxed out, and it becomes very cookie cutter, very linear. I know a lot of you guys have told me in the comments before that just chasing Tactics or just chasing after Courage for magical and physical builds can become very samey, and I agree. We want to experiment with these other inscriptions, but at the same time, we shouldn't be punished for doing so by having noticeably weaker builds. I mean, if you want to do a swamp build or a volcano build, you shouldn't feel like you've just picked up, you know, a really, really poor build that doesn't really synergize with many skulls. It's just a fun gimmick for the sake of a gimmick, but I like the idea that they're trying to reduce the amount that you need. Yes, they needed to gather 8. You can see they're talking about it here. It became very, very, very difficult, and they also became overvalued because with Tactics and Courage, like I was saying, when you max them out, they give you massive returns. It is worth chasing them down. It just becomes very, very linear, you know? If you get into the first couple of shops and you start finding things like the basic sword or the Carlean staff, and you're playing a magic skull or a physical skull, you think to yourself, right, now I just need to get the other 7 Courage items or 7 Tactics, and we're good to go. Maybe throw in a Thieves' Blacksteel Dagger in there, or some Dark Priest robe to add some extra utility to the mix, and we're all good. We've won the run. Not very good, not very good. So what are they deciding to do here? Ooh, look at all these. Wait, these are all new icons. Wait, no, that's not. Wait, that is. Wait, I'm not sure. No, a lot of these are new. Hang on. Such situations like giving up the legendary item for common ones to maintain the inscriptions are frequently seen. I feel like that's a personal attack, Southpaw. Are you guys having a go at me because I often keep Hate Stone just to keep the Tactics? I feel like that. I feel like they're targeting me. Do you have any idea how often people get mad at me saying, Beelz, why are you keeping the stupid Hate Stone instead of taking, for example, Demonomicon? It has magic on it. Or Sphinx Eye, it has more magic damage on it. Hate Stone wants you to get hit to activate. It's only 3 seconds. You'd have to be getting bullied in order for that effect to be worthwhile. And I always say, I need it for the Tactics. I'm only taking it for the Tactics. I don't like this item on its own. I feel like this sentence right here is a direct attack on me, Southpaw. Thank you for that. We expect this update will give some flexibility for players by reducing the required inscriptions. That's fantastic. Like other contents, will improve the inscriptions that weren't very useful. As a result, some inscriptions are changed, gone, or added. I wonder what's going to get cut. Hopefully inscriptions like Courage, Tactics, and others will now be considered as a top on the player's list. Wait, aren't Courage and Tactics already considered top on a player's list? Those are the 2 examples I used before. I mean, yes, they're overvalued, but... interesting word usage there. Okay. How about status effects? This is what we all want to... Is that a frozen chimera I see? Dude, I am so happy to see a frozen chimera right there. Are we finally gonna get status effects on bosses? I'm getting ahead of myself. Give me a second. Intention, making status effects useful in every way. Initially, we designed the status effect as a device to show the concept rather than as a means of attack. The status effect had no relation to actual attack stats and wasn't really practical when it comes to fighting against boss. Yes. In the hard mode contents, every moment will be challenging and we want to give as many options as possible to the players. Frost Skull is going to become so useful for hard mode, dude. CC, crowd control, is a massive thing when it comes to hard modes in games. And the fact that he does big damage at the same time, he's going to be so good. We'd love to see the players strategizing the attack with our new status effects system. Oh, look at this. Players will be able to inflict the status effects on most enemies, including the boss, and strategically use it to clear the stage. So is Frost going to become like SS plus tier now? Do I have to redo my tier list once this update comes out? But of course, some enemies will always find their way to avoid this effect and won't be frozen or stunned. Of course, new status effects will have unique characteristics based on their type. In the case of Burn, enemies in the surrounding area will take even more damage than the burned character. For this reason, this can be a very powerful status effect to have when big group battles. I see. Other status effects will also have their own unique traits. That reminds me of Swamp in a way, like when it blows up, it does more damage to everyone else as well. Interesting that the dude who's literally on fire isn't hurting more than the guys around him. But hey, if it means it's going to help me clear rooms, go for it, dude. Damage inflicted by status effects will affect the stats of physical and magical attacks. You'll get more powerful just like the enemies. Ah, and the status effects are no exception. Like detailed above, the reformation should have a tangible effect on some skulls, items, and quints that use status effects. Very, very interesting. So status effect quintessences, items, and skulls alike are all going to see big benefits from this. So I'm just going to say it now. Alchemist might become even more broken because then things like the Frost Flask, the Poison Flask become really, really good and usable for CCing bosses as well as damage. His swap-in alone throws out multiple status effects. We're going to see Tetanus become really good for Sword Skull. Wow. There's options here. I'm liking what I'm hearing there. We've been asking for this for so long. Thank you. This is a good step in a good direction right here. That's fantastic to hear. New items and status UI added. We have stat page. Oh, it's been so long, dude. We're getting a stat page. Oh my god. Oh, look. Oh, dude. New items will be added to support the updated inscription and status effects system. We will also have status UI for players to check their power in specific numbers when using these items. So you can see, like, I'm assuming that's like what, crit chance and crit multiplier, like 1.5 times crit is how much damage you're doing, or something to that effect. I'm not sure, but there's I speak no Korean, dude. Translate this for me, someone. But we're seeing numbers. We can see numbers. We can actually look at the numbers and see our bonuses, dude. We've been waiting for that for so long. I'm so happy with that one change alone. That's all for today. Just like the skull bouncing adjustment in the upcoming hard mode, this reformation is just a part of the process. It goes without saying that your feedback will have a big impact on hard mode's development and will help us to make it as fun as possible. Please look forward to future updates, and we'll keep doing the best we can. I am very pleased with what I'm seeing here. The items, the new items and status UI, like just getting all these new items alone, like what's that, 18 new items there? 18 new items, and that's just what they're showing here. There might be more, I'm not sure, but that's... Damn, dude, that's a lot of cool looking... I like that. Oh, that's a twin blade. Wait a minute, that's straight up a twin blade right there. Ooh. Yo, am I getting a twin blade in here? Excellent, dude, excellent. That's a whip. That's a whip. That's a whole whip. All right, I'm not gonna sit there and stare at silhouettes any longer. But yes, new items and status UI, fantastic change. The status effect, I'm not gonna lie, status effect reformation might be the thing I'm the most excited about because it's gonna give so much new life to items and skulls and just so many things that we've been taking for granted this whole time. Like Swamp might become a very useful inscription if they decide to keep it. Things like Poison, I mean, Bottled Embers, the joke that Bottled Embers often is thought of, might become more usable. I'm not saying it's going to become a fantastic item, but you might decide to keep it for a little bit longer if burning a boss and having that burn do extra status damage. It might be pretty useful, dude. We don't know. Depends how they want to treat it. But of course, inscriptions being adjusted, less need for more items, like, you know, hopefully no more 8 inscriptions. Maybe make it, you know, 5 or 6 at the most. You know, go back to how it was in the earlier days, because believe it or not, they raised the amount of items required for some of these inscriptions as a way of balancing them, because they noticed, things like Mutant is being used to great effect because, one, the percentage of how much it reduces the cooldown is really, really good, and you don't need that many items to get big benefits from it. So let's nerf some of these inscriptions, bring them down to being more in line with others, and actually make it so you have to get more items to get these big effects, which makes sense on paper. Once again, it goes back to what I said at the start. A lot of their decisions... What? A lot of their decisions actually make sense on paper, but when you get into the game thinking, oh, well, you have to get 8 tactics to become a god, no one's going to be able to do that. It's basically like getting Oberon. Well, it doesn't stop people because they still want to chase that carrot in the first place. Even if they only get 4 or 5 points in tactics, that's still worth their while. So it just becomes a problem. I'm hoping that in the middle of all of this, they're going to adjust Oberon and the fairy tale inscription. Either by giving you something else that you receive in the process. They do mention here that you want to be able to feel the effects when you have 2 to 3 inscriptions are gathered and the overall number are being reduced. So this wordplay right here, feel the effects. They want you to be able to to notice a tangible difference in just having a small number of inscriptions as opposed to having to max it out and get big amounts. Because I'll tell you right now, 2 or 3 points into madness doesn't do that much. 2 or 3 into tactics does a little bit. I mean, that's 3 points in tactics just to get the same amount back as one item. Like, they don't scale that well until they get really high up there. Volcano, infamous for being a really bad inscription. You have to max out Volcano, same with static, in order to get their effects to have a short cooldown. But by the time you've invested in it, you've got this mediocre inscription that doesn't do enough damage, it doesn't bring enough utility, but maybe Volcano might become something special with this new update with status effects. Status effects, who knows? But with all of that said and done, I've got to get out of here, guys. I hope you guys have, I don't know, enjoyed me going over this blog post and seeing what's coming soon for us in Skul the Hero Slayer. Hopefully not too long, but I am very much a fan of waiting longer for a properly finished product than rushing out something that's half-assed. I wish Southpaw all the best in their development of the game. But like I said, with all of that done, I gotta get out of here. Have a good one, dudes, and I will see you all next time. Have a good one.